G'day guys, your old mate Daz from Down Under here again. Now today I'm going to be doing a test drive and an honest review of a 2000 model Chrysler PT Cruiser. Most people either love or love to hate these vehicles, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I think of them. Okay, let's go. Okay, so let's go for a test drive. I'm going to be putting the air conditioning on. Now, it happens to be winter here in Queensland, Australia at the moment, but won't be spring until the 1st of September. It's only the middle of August at the moment, and it's still 24 degrees Celsius. I'll put that up in Fahrenheit for you. So yeah, let's get a bit of aircon going. It's getting quite warm in the car already. Okay, here we go. So back in 2007, I was kind of excited to read in the newspaper that Dodge cars were going to start selling in Australia after being away for more than 30 years. Chrysler and Dodge were common brands in Australia through the 1960s. Dodge pulled out about 1971, I think it was, because I used to have a big Dodge Phoenix sedan. And Chrysler continued in Australia until 1981, and most of their models were unique to Australia. They were great cars. However, the Dodge models were largely based on US design models, and Dodge and Chrysler have always had a good solid place in Australian motoring history. Chrysler in Australia goes back, I believe, to the 1920s, or at least the early 1930s. And owning a Chrysler Valiant in the 60s and 70s was a very common thing. My dad must have owned probably a dozen of them, and he swore by them. So in 2007, when we heard that Dodge was going to be coming back to Australia, I was quite excited. So I had a bit of money in the bank at the time. I'd recently sold a property, and I was tossed up between buying a 2007 brand new Dodge Caliber for $24,000 Australian, or I could have added $1,000 more and I could have bought the 2007 Chrysler PT Cruiser. The PT Cruiser appealed to me, and I think it was a car that you bought more with your heart, but wanting something modern and a bit more practical, I ended up going with the Dodge Caliber, and it was also slightly cheaper, and I thought the design at the time was, really quite funky and trendy, and I had that car until 2010, and I put around 60,000 kilometers on the car, which is 36,000 miles, and the car never missed a beat. It was lovely. But I'd always at the back of my mind wanted a PT Cruiser. My wife hated the looks of them. Most people I know find the PT Cruiser design is something you either really love or really hate. I personally love the design. I love the fact that it's just so retro, and more important for me, the car is quite fun. I think it's important to enjoy the vehicle that you drive. You know, you could have something like, and I've owned, you may not know, but I'm a motor dealer, and I've owned around 3,000 cars in the last 37 years, because that's what I do. I buy and sell cars for a living. And to me, it's more important to have a car that's fun to drive than one that's just boring, bland, but very practical. So I'm not really your Toyota Camry, Toyota Corolla sort of guy, although I know they're good vehicles. But to me, I would get more enjoyment, and I do, from driving something like this, a PT Cruiser, than if I was to get into a brand new Lexus, something that I have done before. I've also owned a Bentley. I had a Bentley Mulsanne Turbo that used to belong to the British High Commission in Hong Kong, and it was low kilometers, it was black, it was absolutely beautiful, and I loved the car, but I didn't enjoy driving it as much as something basic and simple as this, because there's something a little bit magical about not just PT Cruisers, but some of the other retro cars that came back out. I'm not so keen on the new Mini. I bought my wife a really good new Beetle, and it was modified with like a Porsche whale tail on the back and big chrome wheels, and she absolutely loved that car, despite the fact that she'd owned Audis and you know, Saabs and many different makes and models. She really did love that Volkswagen Beetle. And of all the cars that I've had in my life, one that I've kept and won't sell is a 2000 model Jaguar S-Type, which is also, you know, a retro throwback to the 1960s, when Jaguar was probably in its heyday, and it's more of a homage to a bygone era than anything else. I have one that's in beautiful condition that hardly gets driven, and I love it a lot. Didn't cost me a lot of money, about $4,500, but I won't be selling it. I got it for my 50th birthday. I've now had it for 4 years, over 4 years, and it won't be for sale. I'm keeping it. So when you come along to something like this PT Cruiser, what I like about it, firstly, is the styling. I like that it's different. I like that everyone hasn't got one. A lot of people had them years ago, but now there's not so many on the road. I also really love the fact that you can buy these for a cheap price. Even in Australia, where cars are expensive, you can still get these for around $2,000 Australian, which is, you know, about $1,400 US. And I think that's a lot of fun, a lot of good value, a lot of enjoyment that you can have for not much money. And that's what motoring should be about. It should be about, yeah, you need to get from A to B, you need to get from A to Z, but you should enjoy the trip as well. Now, I'm not saying the Chrysler PT Cruiser is a great car, because it's not. It falls very short in many areas, but there's a lot of things about the PT Cruiser that redeems those shortcomings. So styling for me is one of them. Some people would say that the styling was the worst thing about it. I find it very practical, appealing, and, as I said, a lot of fun. Now, something else, you know, I like about the PT Cruiser, well, firstly, it's a Chrysler. So in Australia, we love our Chryslers. They've always been sort of popular with the locals. It's always been Holden, Ford and Chrysler. We're the big three car manufacturers, and I'm going up a very steep hill now. So I'm going to have to go back at least one gear, if not two, because this little 2-litre engine has adequate power and performance but that's all it has. It just has enough to do what it has to. This is the first generation, came out with the 2-litre engine, putting out 104 kilowatts, I think it was, in the metric. Nothing to get excited about. A few more kilowatts than other makes and models that had a 2-litre engine, but nothing special. Originally came from the Chrysler Neon, which sold in very small numbers in Australia and is considered a total flop and a lemon. But in many ways, I think Chrysler got it right with the PT Cruiser. I think, you know, the PT Cruiser is a car that you buy with your heart, not with your head, but still, I doubt you will regret it. Now, as I was saying, they're not a great car by any stretch of the imagination. They only do everything adequately. There's nothing exciting about them, but they're a good size. Now, they're not too big, they're not too small. There's plenty of room when you park them in the garage to be able to store your fishing rod and your barbecue and your lawnmowers, and it's not going to fill up your garage and you won't be able to close the door, which is what happened to me when I bought a Plymouth Fury Sport hardtop, and I found out that the car hung out of my garage door by 3 feet, and it was going to cost me $10,000 to extend my double garage an extra metre to just squeeze the Plymouth Fury into my garage. So unfortunately I had to sell that car. Looking back now, if I'd have kept it, I would have tripled my money and it would have more than paid for the extension to my garage, but who was to know that at the time? So look, these days there's not a lot of you know, excitement in the automotive world. Like, some people are saying that electric Teslas are, you know, are amazing, and, you know, yeah, they seem to be getting better and getting cheaper, but to me there's still something lacking from them. There's something about driving, you know, a fossil fuel car, and I think they're going to still be around for quite a while yet. But, you know, with everything else getting so expensive, for example, I would like to own a Dodge Challenger or a Dodge Charger from the late 1960s. Could have bought one about 5 years ago. They were selling in Australia for between $40,000 and $70,000. I thought that was a terrible amount of money at the time. The ones I've seen for sale recently all start with a 1 in front of it. I'm seeing prices of $140,000, $165,000 for those same cars. And now I'm wishing that I had bought one, say, 5 years ago and saved $100,000. So with collectible cars and classic cars going up in price so much, that air is really ice cold, to my mind, there's not a lot to choose from the cheaper sort of cars that are sort of worth buying and, you know, either keeping it or putting it away for a while as a collector's car. So you know, there are some Japanese cars which you know, like Skylines, which may be, you know, worth putting away. Nissan Stagea wagons. You know, there are some cool cars. There's some early Mercedes and BMW models which are great. Some people are starting to find the MGF collectible. I don't think it's great, you know, it's no better than a PT Cruiser probably, but a lot of fun to be had for not much money, so people are starting to buy those and squirrel them away for later. So it doesn't leave a lot of cars that you could go out and buy yourself, you know, a semi-collectible, you know, mildly classic car to have some fun with that isn't going to break the bank. But I think the PT Cruiser ticks those boxes. So this is probably the 5th PT Cruiser. I've had probably 5, maybe 6 of them, and this one is the oldest and probably the rarest one that I've owned. I've only had this car a few months now, and it's only been the last couple of weeks that I've got around to putting it on the road and driving it again. And the reason being is that I've just had so many cars. I've had 10 or 12 cars at a time at my house, and it's just been hard to get through to the ones that I wanted to start driving. Now, I'm going to be teaching my daughter to drive in this one, because currently this is the only manual gearbox car that I have. It's important to me and to her that she gets herself a manual car license. It's easier to go out and get an automatic license. She's 17, but I want to start her off right. To my way of thinking, if you can't drive a manual, you're not going to be much help to me or anyone else, because half of the cars in Australia are manual. And I said to her, if you can't get in a car and drive it, it's probably, you know, your license is not much good. I recommend that you get your manual license, even if you never use it. She's got an automatic Peugeot 407, which she really likes, and that'll be her drive car most likely. But I said to her, get your license in a manual car, even if you never drive one ever again, because it's difficult later on to get out of a manual only license and get into a manual license. So she's started taking some driving lessons in this. It's nice and narrow. It's got a nice tight gearbox. It's easy to drive. The steering is quite good. So for a learner, this is a great car. Now, some people drive PT Cruisers every day and swear by them. Some people just swear at them and wish that they didn't have one at all. I'm reasonably happy with my experience with PT Cruisers. There's been a couple of times when I've had to go out and do some repairs. None of the cars that I've owned, none of the PT Cruisers that I've owned have cost me more than about $500 or $600 to fix in total during the time that I've owned them. I've had to replace a couple of drive shafts. A common thing is the power steering pressure switch starts leaking. You'll see power steering fluid on your driveway. That hasn't happened to this one yet, but if it does happen, it doesn't cost much money to go out and buy a brand new one. I've seen them on eBay in the USA. You can buy a power steering pressure switch for less than $10. In Australia, they're about $30, $35, and you can fit them quite easily. It takes, if you can get your hands up underneath there, it only takes about 10 minutes to swap them over. But they seem to break down probably every year or 18 months. So that's something you could expect to have to replace on a PT Cruiser. Another thing that goes on them is the dashboard. Now, underneath the dash mat here, there's quite a hefty crack which goes all the way right through to the back. Every PT Cruiser I've had has had a cracked up dash, which is not good. But something that's a little bit redeeming about that is it's very easy to take that top dash pad off, swap it over with another one from the wreckers, or you can get them recovered in vinyl, leather, whatever you want to do. You can modify them and custom a little bit if you want to. So yeah, it's a pain if your dashboard gets cracked up, but you know, I think I covered one in vinyl for less than about $60, and a friend of mine had one recovered in leather for about $300 or $400. So it's not the end of the world, and you get to choose the material, and you get it back looking brand new or better than brand new. And if it's done properly, the crack won't come back again. So it's just simple things like that, and that's part of the experience of owning a car like this. You should plan to have to spend little bits of money on it here and there. And if you're lucky, you will avoid the problem of blown head gaskets. I'm told that I haven't had a head gasket go on any of my cars yet, but I have seen some of these at auction with a blown head gasket, where people have just thought it's not worth fixing a car where they've got to replace the head or the gasket or even the whole motor. So they just dump the car in the auction and they're happy to sell it for whatever. There was one recently with a blown head gasket, and I think it made $650 at auction. Now the good thing about that is, if you need a supply of spare parts, something like that would be terrific, because if you ever need a starter motor or an alternator, you know, a lot of them come with custom sets of mag wheels, So one of them would be worth its weight in gold. If you decided to get one of these and keep it for a while, it would kind of be handy to have a spare car. But then again, there's a lot of these in the wreckers yards, and you can buy the parts for these reasonably cheap. And that brings me to another thing. So the PT Cruiser is one car that has lots of aftermarket parts available for it, so you can do heaps of modifications, and you can buy all sorts of custom parts to put on it. They're not generally expensive, but you know, you can modify the headlights, the tail lights, the bodywork. There's chrome kits, there's wood kits. There's so much stuff that you can choose from to personalise your PT Cruiser so it ends up exactly the way that you want it. Well, I've just driven a fair bit actually. I'm going to start heading back towards my home. So the drivability of a PT Cruiser, I'm going to give it, it's about a 5 or a 6. Let's call it a 5.5 out of 10. Ease of maintenance, well, you can get most parts for it, and they don't seem to be too expensive. There's a lot of used parts available. Ease of maintenance, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. The purchase price or value for money or bang for buck, I'm going to give it an 8, because they're not expensive. They can be a lot of fun, and owning one is, I still think it's enjoyable. So problem wise, yes, they do have a few problems. They might even have a few more problems than other cars, but not excessively so. There are many makes and models that is far worse than a Chrysler PT Cruiser. So I would say reliability and you know, whether it's going to let you down or not and have lots of problems with it, I'm probably going to give it a 4 out of 10. But the overall experience of owning a Chrysler PT Cruiser, by the time that you've worked out what it's cost you and the amount of fun that you have with the vehicle and the enjoyment, I think the overall experience is something like a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10. The things that's not great about it don't really worry me too much, and the things that are great about it more than compensate for what's wrong with it. So just to summarize, this particular vehicle is a first generation 2000 model PT Cruiser limited edition with the 2-litre petrol engine and non-turbo and a 5-speed manual gearbox. Later on there was a 2.4-litre petrol engine here in Australia. A bit hit and miss, mixed reviews on that engine. They weren't really any better than the 2-litre at all. They only put out 1 kilowatt of extra power, but they actually used more fuel, and they were the model that was more likely to blow a head gasket or get a warped head. So if you do get an earlier one with the 2-litre petrol engine, it's going to be just as fine as if you buy a later model one. Now this one being a limited edition has got a lot of extra features, such as it's got leather and Alcantara suede inserts. This one's got electric seats. Now the electric seat is only the height adjustment. It doesn't cover the backwards and forwards or the rake of the seat, but you can raise the height of the seat electrically. And something that I really like, and I've not really had this on other cars, maybe only on one other car, I think my wife's Volkswagen Passat CC Coupe has got full heated seats. So this PT Cruiser, even though it's 22 years old, has got fully heated seats. And by that I mean a lot of cars have a heated seat base, such as like a Saab will come with a heated seat base, but on this particular model the back heats up as well. And of all the cars I've had, I've only had 2 cars, this and the CC Coupe. which actually have this feature. So the other night it was quite foggy and a little bit cold, and a friend and I went up to KFC to go and grab some food, and I told him, but oh, by the way, there's a, it's got a heated seat button, and we both turned our heated seats on, and we were both shocked to find out just how beautiful and warm our backs were, especially the lower part of your back where it gets a bit sore at the end of the day. And it was amazing. It was really good. So other than that, the limited edition has things such as like chrome-plated wheels. Not a lot of difference other than that. There will be some things I'll remember later on. But just in conclusion, if you've never had a PT Cruiser before, I do recommend you go out and try one, especially now. It's not going to cost you a lot of money to buy one. If you've had one before and it was a lemon, maybe give it another go if you've got some fond memories of the car, that you had some good times with it. And if you were like me and actually are a bit of a fan of the PT Cruisers, well, let's rescue as many as we can, keep them on the road, because they're becoming rarer and rarer all the time. To give you an example, 5 years ago at motor dealers' car auctions, I would probably see almost one a week in the car auctions, and then maybe a couple of years ago or before COVID, I would probably see about one a month. And now, in the last 12 months, I've only seen two for sale at auction. So they're getting rarer. The prices are going up. There are people selling these now. You can get a rough one for less than $2,000. I didn't pay a lot for this one because I'm a motor dealer and it was traded in. But seems to be that some people are asking $3,500 to $7,000 for one of these now. So they are getting rarer. The prices are going up. I think they're getting more desirable, and there's a lot of people who now don't remember these cars or they don't know anything about them. Now, this is not the sort of car that when you drive down the road, it's going to pick up chicks, but something I've noticed, and it's quite fun really, is that when it's coming down the road, kids really love it. Kids will be walking down the road with their parents, or out with a group of kids riding their push bikes, and they see it coming and they start pointing at it. And I had my windows down one day. I was giving my daughter a driving lesson, and this kid about 10 or 11 shouts out, "Cool car, mate, really cool." And all the kids were like, riding their bikes and following us up the road. Now, maybe that's not the sort of attention you want to get, but I think what it comes down to, if you're a kid, for example, and you see a car coming down the road and it looks like the sort of car that you would get as a toy, as a Hot Wheels car, or a Matchbox car, that's got to be a good thing. You've got something a bit different to everybody else, and people, especially young people, recognise it, because being 22 years old, there's a lot of people who don't remember these cars, haven't seen one before, or know nothing about them. And when they see them on the road, generally the reviews are quite positive. So why not have a car that you enjoy and other people enjoy seeing as well? Anyway, I'm just going to do a quick walk around the car, show you a few little features, and that'll be it. Okay, thanks.
Bye.